29.
We used the boat I used was Hatch's little boat, and I'd say it would carry about 8 or 9 people.
The little snout boat.
But it took the rapids very well. And I liked it because I couldn't walk around the rapids. My legs are too bad. So I got to ride through.
Yeah.
Before we turn this tape on, you were talking about how crowded it is on the river.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we're really wrestling with that now, one of the, they're kind of stirring around and they're going to rewrite the management plan and stuff, and just how they manage the river and stuff, and that's a big concern of ours is how do you figure out, you know, how are you going to run the river, how are you going to run the park to where people get a quality experience. How do you
I don't think there's a, I think the way the river is being run today is as well as it can be run. I couldn't imagine where you could improve on it. The food is good, the toilet facilities are very well handled, and that was a big problem. Water's no problem. As I say, to me, and it's not a solvable problem, because anybody in this country has the right, or any place, has the right to go down that river. And if nobody will take them, I've always said you can just go up there and do it yourself. Of course, the park doesn't like that, but they'd have a hard time trying to prosecute you for it.
Well, it darn sure seems like it's an important asset.
What's that?
It darn sure seems like the river and that whole experience is a real important asset for the country and the state.
I think it's as I say, any American, any person has the right to see our country. And if we start making rules about who can and who can't see it, then we're not America. But we can complain all we want about you don't want that many people seeing it. I don't like so many people living in Phoenix, but I'm not going to do anything about it. I can't. And I don't know how you're going to. I've read about efforts to manage it. I don't know how you'd manage that trip any better. What do they limit to 150 people a day now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's a hell of a lot of people. But if you can handle it, fine and dandy. One thing, and I don't know how if this happened, when you allow a company or a person to run people through the canyon, do they have to qualify in any way to become a boatman?
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Yep.
What is it, a hard qualification?
Not particularly. You have
I
to.
don't think so.
Yeah, you have to have 6 trips through, and you have to take an examination, and you have to have a certain amount of first aid training to be able to run a boat, and you have to be a certain age.
There's only one thing left that I want to see have happen, and that each trip should carry a radio. And I've even found a radio. It's not cheap, but you can get people to make them for you. 10-meter transceiver, about that big. You can run it off the batteries you carry with you. If you ever have a person break a leg or break a neck or die, it'd be awfully nice to be able to call back to headquarters and say, look, I need help. Send a helicopter.
And there's the radios right now that exist.
Well, the radios can do it. The time I took my kids down the river, I carried my amateur radio equipment with me. I worked about 60 or 70 people up to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. They'd never believe it. They'd say, where are you? What's your QTH? I said, we're at the bottom of the canyon, Mobile. Where? I'd have to explain to them where we were. But the little that was a big bunch of equipment I had. Now, that big a box can take care of the whole damn thing. And I think as a matter of safety, every trip should carry one.
Well, obviously on your first trip you didn't have a radio or any.
Oh, nothing.
What did you figure you guys would do if there was a problem?
Well, we didn't think there'd be any problems. You never do. No, by God, we had a problem. Doris Neville's, she fell and hurt her arm, and we thought we'd have to row the boats all day and night to get her down to Lake Mead. But the arm in a day or two cleared up, and so we didn't have to go. But there's always, whatever you do in the way of camping out, there's always the danger of snake bites. This last trip we took, hell, we got a rattlesnake about that big long, big fat, or a big snake rattler. And they're all over the place, but nobody ever gets bit.
Oh, they seem pretty gentle.
Scorpions are the worst thing you put up with. I don't like those rascals.
I can't help. I've got another. Just back to this management question, because I'm coming back to it because it's something that really does bug me. Because what we've seen, and I know what we've seen is only a fraction of what you've seen in terms of growth. You know, in Prescott and here and everywhere you look in this state, the population's kind of just going through the roof, and they're having that problem there on the rim too, just with all these people visiting, and it comes, I see this philosophical question, you know, coming up when it comes to how you're going to run the national parks, and it's, you know, if the population continues to go up, do you have some kind of control, or you know, just have?
Well, there's no question that we're going to have to control the south rim. Now, how? I don't want to see them close the Altavar Hotel, or Bright Angel, or the little cabins. Yet 4 million people will visit that canyon this year, and there's only 400 places on the whole south rim, including camping places where people could stay. Mm-hmm. Now, I think the ideas that I've heard, like keeping everything a distance back from the rim, I don't know whether it's 10 miles or back where the village is, back near the landing strip, but you can go up there in your car, leave it. And if you want to go to the rim, there's electric or gasoline transportation to go up there and provide transportation all the way along, even west of Hermit's Camp, and as far east as the lookout tower. That'll take care of the people. But now, when you try to translate those people who want to go down the river, that's another horse. And part of the other horse's trouble is the superintendent. They just moved probably the best superintendent we have ever had up there.
Yeah.
And with all due respects to the new man, he doesn't know what the old man knew. And that has a big bearing. What do we do, like that Price's wooden building burned down with all that good stuff in it? The building should never have been kept there in its state.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen if the museum burns down? There's an awful lot of stuff up there that needs done.
Yeah. Well, that strikes us that same way.
And I tell you the truth, I would not feel happy leaving it entirely up to the whims of the National Park Service. I'm not overly impressed with the way they've kept everything under their jurisdiction. I've known some members, some people who are in the national park business, love the work and did a lot of good for it. But I've known people that didn't know their ass from a hot rock about even taking care of people. I go up to the rim, and what do I see? People eating lunch all over the the lawn of the El Tovar Hotel. That shouldn't be allowed. We run a train up there every day now from Williams. I think that's wonderful. But there's the old Babbitt store. What's going to happen? One of these days it'll go burn down. They have a make-believe hospital. There's just a lot of damn good work needed to take care of all the people. 4 million who are visiting the south end of the canyon.
Well, and it's the
And
same.
if I were you guys, I'd make my voice real loud. I don't know this new super. I've seen him once. We had a little 75th recognition dinner down, or meeting in an art shop, and he made a short speech. He didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
Well, there's a bunch. It's like you say. That's really true. There was a big loss with that when Chandler left, and even Davis before him.
Well, you fellas, the river runners, probably know more about that river and the canyon than all the other people put together.
Well, that was kind of what we thought, and that was why we started this little.
Well, I know that.
association. But we're
I
having.
remember old Doc Marston, and Doc took the trouble to learn the river, and then he took the trouble to run a power boat up the damn thing. I remember when he did that. I just, as I say, I love that place, and you start pooping around with it, you're going to have me on your hands too.
You know, you said something there that strikes me, and that is that Doc Marston took the time,
Yeah.
or took the effort, and it seems that the easier and the more convenient we make it for people to see, somehow a little something is lost. That the more effort someone has to make, possibly they get more out of it.
Well, one of the greatest things that could happen on the river trips would be have each company have someone very knowledgeable. I mean, who could point out every rock and tell what's the geologic background of that rock. Every age of geology is in that canyon but one, and you find that one up east of the lookout tower on a little hill. People don't know that the rocks in the inner gorge were at one time formed a mountain chain higher than the present Alps. And those are interesting things. The first discovery of any living evidence, any evidence of having living life in there. The story of trying to move the deer from the north rim to the south rim. It's a fantastic story. Airplanes landing. Ellsworth Cobb landed an airplane down on the Powell Plateau. Nobody remembers that.
Why did he do that on purpose?
Yeah, he did that. I guess around 1913, 14.
Was that an accident, or he just
No,
meant
he
to do
he
it?
landed an old Jenny down there, and nobody thought he'd ever make it out. By God, he took it off. I bet Belknap has something on that. And the story of water, this story about the trails. I think I walked down every trail that they've had, and some they didn't have. But there's just so much to make the trip. The Neville's trip that I took, the first one, was triply interesting because we had people that could, oh, look at that bird. Well, that's a white heron, and you only find them here and there. Or the geologist who could tell us every morning about the rocks. And I remember an interesting story, something I tried. We were getting reports that the jets that flew over the canyon, the fighter jets from Lew and Willie, that when they were breaking the sound barrier, it was shaking rocks loose, and the rocks were going to fill that canyon. So the last trip I took, I talked to Luke Field and I said, look, I'm taking the radio with me and I'm going to call you guys. And when I call you the next morning, I want you to come up with 5 F-100s and come right where I'm going to be and just break the sound barrier. I want to see what happens. So they came roaring down that canyon, boom, boom, boom. Not one pebble. So we put that thing to rest.
Yeah. That's good. Good scientific experiment.
Well, it was. And people have often asked me around this state, what's your most beautiful spot in Arizona? Well, I said the falls that come out to form Tapete Stream. And I said, if you're interested, you can go up to Jacobs Lake, and you can follow a road down so far, and then you can walk to where this waterfall comes right out of the red rock, about 40 degrees, and if you want to walk down the river, you can. Well, not many people know about that, yet they can do it. That's the most beautiful part of Arizona to me.
That's great. Not many make the effort.
Well, not many people want to make it.
Right. They choose
But if you
not
tell
to.
them the stories, then they want to do it.
Mhm.
Well, we have this problem politically now, you know, like you say, the people that, I mean, we actually feel like, having been around there for 20 years, we do know a little bit about the
Yeah.
river and about what's going on, but there's kind of a mindset in the park, in a lot of cases, that they don't want to fraternize with people, with the locals. They don't want to, the guys who manage the park, well, they feel like that we're kind of the enemy or something. They just don't want to get too close to us, and
Well, I'd ignore them.
yeah.
I would.
Well, I don't know.
I know that attitude exists. I remember the trouble the Cole brothers had. The Cole brothers had trouble starting that photographic studio. The Park Service didn't want it because it was a business that they couldn't control because Cole had built the house and it belonged to him. Do what he wanted. And I've run into this thing at the canyon where we've had any number of superintendents who just didn't care. And things went on. God, I can remember like people wanting to use the South Rim for snowing, this skiing, and just walking with skis. And at times we had getting that permission. God, I remember when we built, even I forget things. We built the first church up there on the rim. And we had an awfully hard time getting the Grand Canyon people to approve it.
Was that the Shrine of the Ages?
Well, that started it. When Howard Pyle used to go up there on Easter and have his Easter service on the rim of the canyon, they didn't like that at all. But we finally got a man that liked it. So it made progress. I tell you, you have to almost get into politics to get around that.
Mhm.
And that's why you ought to get real friendly with your senators. Now, you got a guy named McCain He doesn't know much about the canyon, but he's friendly.
Yeah.
And Kyle, I think, will be friendly if he's elected. I think all the members of our delegation would be helpful to you fellows.
One of the stormiest periods in the modern river running up there was in the 1970s. There was a controversy between the motors and oars, removing the motors, and I imagine you got involved in that, or the different
No.
outfitters got you involved?
We used a motor when Neville's trip in 1940, and it didn't take long for us not to like it, because it's one thing to float down that river with a quietness, then hear that putt, 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 putt. So we didn't use the motor much. I remember when you had that controversy, but when you're taking that many people through, I don't know how you're going to do anything else. Frankly, I'd like to see motors forgotten. Just use the oars and go through.
Well, we're really having to struggle with it right now because, like I say, they're going to redo this plan, and you know, the question. One of the questions is, well, there's all these different issues. One of them is there's the private versus commercial use is a big thing, and the other just is the overall use level. And the question for us is, do we? Everybody pretty much agrees that we don't want it to increase anymore, but do we need?
Well, you can't control that. You can control it by, I'd keep it at 150. I'd never let it go above that.
150.
And if anything, I might even haul it back to 100. Not that it'll make a lot of difference. But get real friendly with your Congress people.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to have to settle this in the Senate and the House, that's where you settle it. Not up in Flagstaff.
Not in the Park Service.
No.
Not at the South Rim.
I don't think you're going to get much out of this present Park Service either.
I've spent a bit of time with Boyd Evison, and I think he's a good man. Unfortunately, he's only there for 10 months.
That's right.
And so there's only so much that he...
Well,
he'll
they
be
ought
able
to leave men up there for ages.
Yeah.
The best people they've had were there for a long, long time. I'm gonna have to sort of move. What time?
Yeah, we're running late.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.